Was LEGO Nexo Knights good or bad? Well, by the end of the video, you'll have a better understanding whether Nexo Knights was a great theme of LEGO or a disaster and a failure. The first area we're going to start with is the initial concept of Nexo Knights, and to put it in 2 words, futuristic knights. Now, knights are a very broad concept. When you think of knights, you usually think of medieval times. Dragons, castles, and of course, knights. And if you think about it, knights and ninja aren't that different. They're both warriors, and LEGO has done themes of both of them. And I feel like Nexo Knights might not have been able to reach those massive LEGO audiences like Asia. And on top of that, you make them futuristic. And let me tell you, there are a lot of die-hard LEGO fans that have grown up with these different themes of knights throughout the years. And when you put the futuristic twist on it, it takes a little bit of that medieval charm away. Imagine if you've been collecting knights LEGO for years and you keep adding it to your big medieval display. Well, Nexo Knights comes along, which does not mesh well with medieval fantasy knights. They're 2 different concepts. The knights are the same, but the futuristic versus non-futuristic are enough apart that you can't really combine. In theory, the concept of futuristic knights is fun, but I'm sure a lot of people would have just liked them to make another knights theme. I'm gonna give the initial concept a 6 out of 10. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the best concept they've ever had. Moving on to the next category here, we have the LEGO sets. And I will say, I love the Nexo Knight LEGO sets. They did a fantastic job theming the knight machines and making them fit with the characters themselves. You've got Lance, who is more horse themed, and he carries a massive lance, and Lance's mecha horse was by far my favorite Lance machine. You had Axel, who was a big buff knight, and he carried an axe, and all of his machines were more bulky. I loved his season 2 machine with 2 big drills on the front. You also had Aaron, which was a pretty slick dude with a crossbow, and his first season machine literally is a flying crossbow. And the weapon Macy has is a giant mace, and my favorite of her machines was her flying dragon from season 2. And finally, there was Clay Morrington, the main knight here. He carried a huge claymore sword, but by far my favorite LEGO set from this wave was the Fortrex. This masterpiece of a LEGO set still holds up today. I love the color combination of gray, transparent orange, and blue, making this vibrant rolling castle. The idea of the Fortrex is one of the most unique and creative LEGO concepts I've ever seen, and I got it when I was 12, and it's still one of my favorite LEGO sets I have to this day. My favorite villain was from season 2. It was this lightning stone Rogul. Most of the Nexo Knight sets were bright, colorful, and had fun play features, with a couple duds here and there. I think the Knight Castle is okay, but it definitely doesn't compare to the Fortrex by any means. And Lance's hover machine from the last season was very boring and bland. It definitely felt like some of these sets could have used another coating of detailing, like the massive Colossus of Ultimate Destruction. The legs have so many studs going up them, it bothers me. The characters are loaded up with weapons and massive shields. Talking about the shields, LEGO actually made an app to go alongside these LEGO sets where you could scan the shields and give you power-ups in the app. When I tried to play it, it was super buggy and took forever to load anything up. And scanning the Nexo Knight shields was kind of fun, but ultimately they could have saved themselves a lot of time by not including the app. Another thing I don't really like about these sets, with every new wave that came out, they kept going further and further away from that distinctive medieval look. I feel like the Fortrex was the all-time best set from this wave. I'm going to give the LEGO sets a 7 out of 10. For the most part, the sets were bright, colorful, and had great play features. It's time to talk about the TV show. The basic story here is 5 main hero knights have to defend the kingdom from Jestro and Monstrox. To start off, we'll talk about the good. And the main thing here is fun, likable characters. These characters are definitely funner than Chima. The standouts are especially Clay, Aaron, Jestro, and Monstrox. I feel like Axel, Macy, and Lance can get a bit annoying at times. Lance is always showing off about himself, and it gets slightly annoying. Macy's always whining about being a princess, and Axel is constantly hungry, and that can get very tiring and makes me hungry too. So growing up, Axel was always my favorite, and he still is probably my favorite today, and Clay's a close second. In the show, Clay's definitely the standout character here, especially when he turns into stone. He has to go through a new character arc, and it gives Aaron time to shine as a leader of the group. Oh yeah, and I don't think I mentioned this, but Murloc is also slightly annoying. Basically, imagine if Sensei Wu never shut his mouth once. Another thing I like about Nexo Knights is the world building. How many different locations. It can get a bit repetitive with the little villages, but there are a lot of unique locations, and I think the Kingdom of Night is an awesome world. Now, let's get into the bad. For starters, the episodes are extremely episodic. Every single one shares the same format. Basically, you go on a quest. Jester and Monstrox show up at the end. You fight them. You use your Nexo power, and you defeat them. Almost every single episode. I think it especially hurt season 1. Season 1 is so repetitive, you can barely keep the episodes apart. They all just feel like the same episode. I definitely feel like in season 2, the episodes get more unique, and season 2 is much better than season 1 in my opinion. Ninjago does a great job of progressing the story dramatically with every episode. In Nexo Knights, you could probably watch the first and last episode of every season and pick up what went on in the middle. Another thing that bugs me to death about this show is how slow and boring the fight sequences are, which it could have been and it should have been. I think that hurts the show a lot. The last thing that really hurt the show is that it never actually finished. It was canceled after 4 seasons. They put out Lego sets for season 5, but they never actually made the show for season 5. Even in the last episode that they ever made, they teased season 5. The Tech Infection was a very unique wave of sets, and it could have been a fun idea for a show. So I'm gonna have to give the Nexo Knights show a 5 out of 10. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great. Now it's time to talk about why did Nexo Knights fail. And let's start with the most obvious one. 2017 was not the best year for LEGO, and in fact it was the first year since 2004 since LEGO had not made more money since the previous year. 2017 saw the release of the LEGO Batman and LEGO Ninjago movie, which neither of them did great in theaters, and they were also pouring a lot of effort into Nexo Knights with the show, with the app, with all the LEGO sets. So something had to go, and of course it was Nexo Knights. They really just spent too much money on the show, the app, the LEGO sets, and it wasn't able to sustain itself. Another thing is, I don't know if this hurt it or not, but in every single wave of Nexo Knights, you had the same 2 villains, Jestro and Monstrox. And that can get boring and repetitive pretty fast, especially with the show. With the medieval, futuristic, fantasy world, you think you'd be able to come up with more unique villains than a Jester and a Book. They're better villains than those. And people love villains. I think villains really carry Ninjago for me. You've got the snakes, the skeletons, the stone warriors. All 3 of those villains are totally different in every way possible. They literally color-coded the villains differently for season 1 and season 2. And the total points Nexo Knights earns is 18 out of 30. 30 is a maximum, and we're going to put it up here on our tier list right beneath Chima. And I have a bunch of other LEGO themes I could review, so tell me in the comments what you want to see next. Here are my final thoughts. I love this bright, colorful medieval theme, and it came with one of my all-time favorite LEGO sets, the Fortrex. Is it good or is it bad? I'm gonna have to say it's good. It's definitely a unique and great theme of LEGO, and I'm so glad that they made it. See you in my next video. Peace.